This is Maddie, a 12-year-old who loved wall climbing. It was spring break and she spent all her free time mostly with wall climbing. She loved that extreme sport thanks to her father's influence, but even so, her mother never liked her doing her hobby, knowing it was dangerous, so she had to do it secretly. One afternoon during her practice session, her mother was super busy with her job and called her to pick up his little brother, Max, who was still a toddler, from daycare, so she had to end her training early. Molly was a security system designer who was often assigned to various agencies and large companies. That day, she was assigned to Harderback Bank, which would be inaugurated next week. In fact, she asked for more time to test the system, but because the boss, Brisbane, didn't want to wait, he wanted her to complete the job right away. Maddie's father, is a manager of a go-kart arena. He often reminded his daughter to stop her hobby of climbing because he and Molly were worried that something would happen to Maddie, though he was actually happy that his daughter had the same hobby as him and couldn't completely forbid her. One of the achievements he was always proud of was his success in reaching the top of Mount Everest. Even though he had fallen while climbing it, luck was still on his side as he was still able to return home safely. Tom conveyed Maddie's complaint about her busy mother to Molly because not only Maddie, he also missed his wife. That night, they wanted to spend time together, but suddenly, Tom fell to the floor unconscious. The next morning, Tom was immediately taken to the hospital, and after he was examined, the doctor found Tom's old injury back when he fell from the top of Mount Everest several years ago. That was what triggered his collapse and made him paralyzed. Unfortunately, the treatment for his condition was only developed in Denmark. It cost $250,000 and couldn't be covered by health insurance because it was an experimental treatment. That much money was too much for their family to cover. Molly didn't stay silent. She kept trying to look for loans everywhere until finally, she decided to apply to Harderback Bank. Unfortunately, Brisbane wasn't complying and rejected her proposal outright, even though she knew that the reason was for Molly's husband's treatment. This made Maddie irritated. As the oldest child, she felt she had a responsibility to help. That night, Maddie saw her mother fall asleep on the couch. She then saw her mother's security systems designed for Harderback Bank, and an idea came to her mind. She immediately invited two of her friends, Gus and Austin, to talk about it. Maddie told them her intention to rob Harderback Bank. They immediately planned the action the very next day. Maddie went to the bank with her mother, saying that she wanted to see where her mother worked. She then observed the CCTV cameras in the bank's security system and then photographed every corner. She also intended to look at the bank's safe, but her mother didn't let her because not just anybody could go there. Fortunately, at that time, Maddie met her mother's colleague, Hartman, who kindly took her to look around the building. While looking around, Hartman showed her some of the offices there. He also talked about the safe, which was located 30 meters above the floor, which would make it difficult for anyone to reach it. But the most important thing was that without realizing it, Hartman had revealed the secret passcode of the bank. Meanwhile, in another place, Gus was in charge of searching the bank's building plan, but he failed because the architect who designed the building didn't allow other people to see the plan, especially for him. The kid who said that he wanted to do his school assignment and needed help, but luckily his cute face made the receptionist feel sorry for him, so she gave a miniature of the building displayed in front of the office for him to take home. That evening, the three friends met again and gathered the information they got. After that, Austin, the computer genius, combined the photos from Maddie with the miniature brought by Gus and finally found out where the safe was located inside the bank. Their preparations didn't stop there. Gus, who was a mechanical expert, was in charge of modifying go-karts to make them faster, but still safe to drive as they would be their transport during the robbery. Austin was tasked with other duties. According to information obtained from Maddie, the bank had security officers and emergency officers. The emergency officers were none other than fierce dogs, and Austin was asked to find out how to deal with that. To trick the security officers who would later be on duty, these three lied to Hartman, who really liked acting, to make a short film that was later used to distract the security. Their preparations went smoothly and Maddie was happy about it, but then a problem arose. She looked closer to Austin and Gus was jealous. She ranted about boys being all the same and Austin was also offended, thanks to that. That night, Maddie felt confused. She knew that her plan had to be carried out immediately because she wanted her father to recover quickly, but the situation between her and her two friends was also getting worse, so in the end she was determined to do anything for her father's recovery. Early in the morning, Maddie immediately met Austin and said that she also liked him. She then gave him a necklace shaped like half a heart and lied that she was wearing the other half. After that, she also said the exact same thing to Gus. Her purpose was none other than to get her two friends back to help her complete this robbery mission. The next day, when the building inauguration party was held, Maddie and her friends were ready to rob the building. Unfortunately, when everything was ready, Molly asked Maddie to look after Max while she attended the inauguration party. This disrupted her plans, but she couldn't possibly refuse her mother's request or she would get suspicious. In the end, Maddie and her two best friends had to bring Max with them on their mission. They were able to sneak into the building without being noticed after disguising themselves as guests and passing through the front gate very smoothly. After that, they went to the CCTV room where they had to disable all the CCTVs there so that they could rob the bank without interference. There were only 2 security officers on duty that night, one of whom was Gus' older brother, Chad, whose dream was to become a policeman. But even so, that didn't mean their mission would be easier, because in fact it made it even more troublesome for them to distract. But Maddie was a genius girl. She used an RC car to trigger the movement sensor sound so that the senior guard named Pharrell left the room, leaving Chad alone. She then came and distracted Chad by saying that the police chief had come to the inauguration party and was looking for him. This made Chad excited, and with great enthusiasm, he went down to the party to meet the police chief, even though it was all a lie. On the other hand, this was an opportunity for Austin and Gus to hack the CCTV camera system in the building. Austin could finally control the surveillance camera so that their movements would not be detected by security officers. After that, the 3 of them went to Brisbane's office and Austin began hacking the CCTV, while Gus and Maddie went to the safe room. A few moments later, Gus and Maddie arrived at the safe room safely, but then they saw where the safe was placed and were confused about how to reach it. At first, Maddie tried to find a way to climb until finally, Gus found a button panel that could open each storage box on the wall of the room, so Maddie asked him to open some boxes to make a panel for her to climb the wall. Gus refused to do it because it was too dangerous, but because Maddie insisted, Gus was forced to comply with her request. Maddie finally managed to climb the boxes, but unfortunately, when she arrived at the top, her hook got stuck between the boxes so she was unable to continue the climb. At that moment, Maddie almost gave up, but then she remembered the story of his father who had climbed Mount Everest. His father said that no matter how difficult the challenge he faced, if the goal was worth fighting for, he would definitely succeed in getting through the challenge. That ignited her spirit to continue even without wearing a safety hook. Maddie and Gus' action of entering the safe room caused the security alarm to go off. However, they had anticipated it. Austin immediately carried out his backup plan by showing a clip of Hartman saying "calm down" to the crowd to distract their attention. Maddie was hanging from above to reach the safe. She did it with great difficulty until she finally managed to reach the safe, but unfortunately, the safe had a different passcode from the passcode of the room. Maddie thought about what password her mother most likely installed when designing the security system in this office. At first, she thought that her father's name would be the password for the safe, but that failed. Maddie then thought about her brother's name, but it failed as well. She then remembered her mother's words and typed in her own name, which turned out to be the passcode. Maddie immediately entered the safe and took $250,000 as she needed, then quickly ran away from the room so they wouldn't be caught. But the security system detected an intruder in the safe room, and that made everyone panic. The security officers were immediately sent to the location, so Maddie and her friends had to avoid them. Unfortunately, they were cornered because the security dog brought by Pharrell had found them, but luckily, Chad arrived just in time. He found out that Maddie robbed the bank because she wanted to help her father, so he let them go. Without wasting any more time, Maddie and her friends immediately headed to the parking lot and walked to their go-karts. But at this moment, unfortunately, Gus and Austin realized that Maddie was lying to them about the heart-shaped necklace. It turned out that Maddie gave each half of the necklace to them both, which of course made them very disappointed, so they immediately returned to their hideout, leaving Maddie alone. On their way to the hideout, Austin felt that his car was having problems. He thought that his go-kart had run out of fuel, and at the same time, the police had received a report that there had been a bank burglary and were tailgating them. Austin made a bold decision to jump over to Gus' go-kart and left the group of police who chased them. When they arrived at the hideout safely, they remembered about Maddie. They were sure that she didn't know that the police were hunting them, and because of that, they went back to look for Maddie to save her from being caught by the police. After that, they went to the hospital to immediately meet Tom. Since Maddie had gathered enough money for the treatment, she wanted to take her father straight to Denmark to get treatment. On the other hand, Molly immediately received a report that the security system had been hacked by an unknown person. She was almost fired because her work was considered a failure, so she went straight to the hospital and met Maddie and her friends who wanted to take Tom away. That was when she realized that the intruder reported was her daughter, so she immediately stepped up to defend her, saying that the robbery was just a simulation because Brisbane didn't allow her to do the security test. It was her plan to test the security without prior notification. The media reported on the greatness of the robbers and mentioned that the leader of the robbers had a sick father who needed a very costly medical treatment. The next day, unexpectedly, many people bought go-kart race tickets and not a few donated for Tom's treatment. The donations from these people made Maddie and her mother feel very happy, But the amount turned out to be still not enough until Hartman suddenly came and gave a donation of $50,000. Hartman also informed that Brisbane had finally resigned from his directorship. 3 months later, Town had recovered and could return to manage the go-kart arena. He also felt happy to be able to return to his normal activities. But what made him even happier was when he realized that his daughter had fought tooth and nail for his recovery, and that was what made him feel very proud and determined to make his little family happier.